Can you beat Terraria's Zenith seed on Master Mode while following what the wiki asks you to do? This seed is widely known as one of the most difficult ways to play Terraria, as it applies the effects of all Easter egg seeds Terraria contains, and it includes the legendary difficulty. The Terraria wiki suggests that there is a way to beat this behemoth of a seed while using a guide, so I'll put my hands and I'll put my trust into it and I'll hope for the best. Whether we're in the underworld or overworld, our monkey brains stay the same as we start aggressively swinging our axes towards the burning trees. These aren't any ordinary trees, however, because when you swing at them, you're greeted with bombs that rain down on you. I got lucky at first, but it would later on be a big problem. The seed indeed proves these statements to be true, as our number one goal at the moment is in fact to chop as much wood and to get the hell out of the underworld, in order to pursue the caverns which offer a much more stable life. Once about 1/5 of the underworld's vegetation levels dropped, I took a well-deserved break to start welding my new battle armor and weapons, which include an arsenal of a sharp wooden stick with some butt-cheek modifiers, along with some stiff cardboard armor, which is practically fire-resistant towards clinkers. Our deforestation session led us towards a greater good, because we were leaving our home for an even better home. Kinda reminds me of a certain movie plot. Being a leader is often praised as an important skill, however, like all of life skills, comes with their inevitable counterparts, which led me to burning out on hot spicy honey. What a great death it is indeed in Terraria. The most important words or the most important phrase I was going to be using during this challenge is never back down and never give up. This is because you will inevitably die to stupid shit and will need to keep trying. In our case, I kept digging up but having to dig all over the place. Left, right, up, down, you can name it and I did it. Regardless of all that, I'm at the surface or the cavern layer, which is where I'll call home for the next century. Except once I arrive, I die. So I jumped at this humble opportunity to begin construction on my cardboard mansion because I was sick of respawning at the underworld and wanted a faster / better respawn point. This wasn't any regular man cave though, because it included state-of-the-art technology which contributed to my success and my success only. This mansion could house my peasants, have welding stations, and set my spawn point. So honestly, this is probably one of the best houses you could ever have. But the one negative downside to it would be it would also help me die. Thank God I went back though, because I almost missed out on the opportunity to pursue a big flying piece of stale bread and some other useless nonsense I'll not be using. With all of that put to the side, if I come back to our best friend, the Wiki, our goal will be the same for quite some time. And it's pretty similar to normal Terraria. Work on getting some athletic bodybuilding armor, Batman's grappling hook, heart crystals, accessories such as Hermes boots, cloud and bottles, and this list could just keep going on for the rest of human time, but for your sake I'll keep it short. During this time I did find some scrumptious loot such as a mace, good potions, heart crystals, and I even led myself towards the jungle in search for better loot. And better loot did I find as I encountered a boomstick. But don't let that fool you, because I equally recognize some terrible deaths. Regardless of all that, it was quite a successful forage. I mean, here's a quick gloss over my inventory at the moment. Clean, right? We got Hermes boots, cloud in a bottle, claws, good weapons, almost maxed out health, and more. What's this? I'm back in the underworld. What for? I mean, I should be avoiding that, but I went back. Yeah, this is why. The Eye of Cthulhu decided to show up in my world uninvited. So I challenged him to a duel and it was time to battle him. I had absolutely no potions, neither did I have an arena, but decided that it was worth a shot. So here's the fight. As you visualize this fight with your own two eyes, you notice the predicament I found myself in. The eye itself was trickling health, in fact oozing it out of itself, but so was I. So I figured that it might be worthwhile to mirror my way out of the situation. This however caused him to just teleport away. This however just boosted my ego to the max, so I came back immediately with some decked out potions, food, and an arena, and challenged him once again. This time, however, I beat his ass. I immediately opened up the bag and claimed my treasures, which included Demonite and a goofy ass shield, which will be one of the best items throughout this whole playthrough. This fight didn't prove to be much better for my health, however, as I gained the biggest ego boost known to man and immediately felt ready to challenge the brain of Cthulhu. Problem though, I needed Crimtane, so I quickly got to work on it, bombing 1/1,000,000th of the Crimson and decided to use the Crimtane to create an artificial biome in the underworld. Surprise, surprise, it didn't work for multiple reasons, but my original reaction to that information was to go on a bombing spree next to my mansion with the sole goal in mind of building an industrial arena to fight him. So after destroying a percentage of my world's ecosystem and replacing it with cinder blocks, the curse of the blood moon was placed upon my world, which was going to be a common theme among this video. Dealing with the blood moon wasn't too bad regardless. I mean, I got the shark tooth necklace in the piggy bank. So once it was done, I was back in the Crimson for more Crimtane, because turns out I also didn't have enough Crimtane. Despite dedicating a bunch of time towards gaining a large quantity of Crimtane, I decided that I didn't want to challenge the brain of Cthulhu, but rather the Eater of Worlds. So it was time to begin mining Ebon stone blocks, and by mining, I mean bombing the shit out of the biome. Once bombed, I contributed my newfound resources towards building a man-made corruption biome, which as you see is quite effective at spawning enemies I don't need or like, but it didn't matter if I liked them or not, because that wouldn't change their minds on whether they would spawn or not. A few more tasks were gonna need to be accomplished before tackling the Eater of Worlds though. Some of these tasks included fishing for fishes, which were gonna be used for potions, and never mind, there were no other tasks. I just needed potions, so let me just drink my potions and try to fight him. Actually wait, I need to put down some spiky balls as well. Pause. Around this time, I ended up fighting the Goblin Army, which allowed me to unlock the Spectre Boots, Reforges, and the spiky balls I just used. Where's the footage? It got corrupted. Yeah, no, it actually just got corrupted. I couldn't find it anywhere. Whatever though. Now I summon him, and for some ungodly reason, the second I summon him, he is ridiculously massive. The spiky balls do a good job at absolutely shredding his health. However, the boomstick is practically pennies compared to the balls, so I was doing practically zero damage with the boomstick. And at this point in the game, my goal wasn't even to beat either evil bosses, but rather to gain tissue samples or shadow skills. As in this seed, they don't follow traditional expert and master mode drops, meaning the parts fall on the ground once the bosses are defeated. All of that didn't matter in the end, however, as I didn't get any skills and I didn't even beat him. After my failed attempt to beat the Eater of World, I used my time to go exploring and to obtain some better accessories and weapons. So after a good session of exploring, looting, and destroying enemies, I decided that I would once again attempt to beat the Eater of World. However, this time, he just plainly decided to despawn. And this pattern of bosses disappearing without any questions was going to happen quite a bit throughout this video. So I got to work on building an artificial crimson biome on top of my arena, and at a certain point after preparing, I felt ready enough to tackle the brain of Cthulhu. Another day, another fail. Yeah, I got washed over, but at that point, I discovered one of the best weapons I could use. Grenades. The only downside to these bad boys was my shit aim, but even that wasn't the worst problem. The grenades were practically melting and devastating the brain's little eyeballs, and the tissue samples and Crimtane ore were dropping was like the most heavenly thing to see, as respawning these bastard bosses is practically impossible, and it's been a while since anything has been accomplished. Regardless, the fight went well until the bastard decided that gravity wasn't for itself and cloned 4 perfect images of itself, removed its real clone from the map, and overall went into turbo overdrive, causing me to die. I didn't mind losing too much though, because I still had gained enough Crimtane and tissue samples for a pickaxe, which was gonna allow me to progress from there. I got myself a few obsidian potions and launched myself into Hell's deepest fire in order to gain some Hellstone, and Hellstone did I get as I mined for quite some time. I also needed obsidian, but nothing interesting happened, so I just mined obsidian. What a notorious mining session, however, as I used my newfound ores in pursuit of better tools, weapons, and armor, as I crafted myself some Hellstone armor, pickaxe, volcanic sword, a bow, and some other shit. I decided that I could challenge the brain once more with this loot, except even with such an upgrade, I let everyone down by failing once again. This loss made me think that Skeletron would be an easier target than the brain. Now pause. I know this may look bad as I used another character to dig up the arena, but in my defense, this genuinely would have taken multiple days to dig up, and by the end of the fight, you see what ends up happening with this arena. So drop your pitchforks for the moment and just wait. The old man watches me as I absolutely demolish his man cave into absolute pieces and replace any form of wall he previously owned with my own. This ideology and belief came from the idea that none of the old man's goons would place a bounty over my head and try to decimate me. I realized, however, that if I even wanted to deal with Skeletron right now, that I would need a way to reach him. This made me realize just how bad a medium-sized world is in this seed, and that I would need to become a professional miner and mine all over the place. It was pretty bad, as I needed to mine all the way through the underground, and I eventually got to a point where I reached the dungeon. However, I was far too gone by then. By that, I mean that I couldn't actually enter the dungeon because I would just get killed. So I took it as an opportunity to loot around me, but after a while, it became clear that I needed to go back to mining. So I traced my steps back and found a spot to dig, which would not be sand, and ruin the mining experience. Yes, I'm not even kidding right now. Sand was one of the biggest problems at this point. Everywhere you would go, it's there, and it's making the whole mining trip impossible. Once I got near the surface, I was greeted with, you guessed it, more sand. Except it was corrupted, meaning that I would have to either tunnel through the sand, which is extremely slow, or declare trench warfare on the corruption and try tunneling my way out. Meaning that I would have to either walk on the surface, which was extremely risky, or declare trench warfare on the corruption and try tunneling my way out. I went with the latter and attempted to build and dig my way out, which was slow but was working. The biggest problem was that the enemies were blocking my way. As I was passing by my tunneling cave, I realized that I was out of potions of all kinds, so I took it as an opportunity to go fishing for some corruption potions and all kinds of other fish and goodies. After that, however, it was back to tunnel warfare, which I would win relatively fast after a while, and after reaching the dungeon, I prepared a few more things around the arena and decided that it was time to challenge Skeletron. And the fight went just about how you may have expected it. Yeah, I got walked over, and in order to no longer have to make the journey of going to the dungeon from my house, I decided that it would be in my best interest to build some type of mini man cave inside the dungeon for easier and faster access. A few off-camera attempts sent me missing on multiple radars. I had enough of being absolutely handled in the dungeon, so I wanted to build my own arena, and build my own arena did I do, as I created a large ass rectangle which went on for multiple light years long. To avoid any enemy spawns, I filled it out with my own white liquids and called it a day, before recreating London's metro system in order to transport myself from Point Dungeon to Point Arena. I sent my ass to the dungeon and challenged the old man once more, and boy oh boy, am I slow as shit. Man, I can't even make it past any of the rebounds because he literally decimates about 1/4 of your health with each hit. And that's just through his hands. If he hits you with your head, you bounce all over the place and you end up dying. I eventually make it up to my newfound minecart technique, and it seems to only have held up for about 20 seconds before I died. Better improvement, but not enough. It may only look like a few Skeletron deaths. However, I also ran multiple tests and tried to beat him off camera quite a few times. Despite it all, I thought that it might be worth attempting to go back to an evil boss. As I am in the corruption already, all I did was extend a large dirt block bridge with some useless minecarts, prepped the arena, got some better ammo, potions, and other boss preps to fight the worm. The biggest problem with my arena, and the arena that I'm fighting him on once again, is despawning. As you see right now, he despawned once again, without good reason, just because he wanted to. This also happens again, except this time he purely had only a few hundred health, and was nothing more than a quivering coward that did not want to face his loss. More attempts with the same problem happen, except some of them I died to dumb corruption things he spawns, which I'm not even exaggerating, deal about 200 damage per hit. A bit more scrambling around, and eventually I got the attempt I was looking for. So let me just shut up and let you enjoy a beautiful fight. After claiming my delectable goodies at the worm drop, such as a scarf and other stuff, I figured that it might be worth challenging Skeletron, at least one more time before finding my next move. Once again, I died on my way to the arena as I was fighting him, so another embarrassing loss for me, I guess. As I just mentioned earlier, it was possible that I needed an upgrade of weapon, Queen Bee. And so here's how the fight went. I thought that I would need to fight her multiple times, but I ended up getting the bow first try, along with some bee-nades, which were going to be extremely useful for Skeletron. Back to Skelly man, I guess, and this time I came up with the genius idea of building a spot that teleports back, or teleports me to a spot, so I'd have a bit extra time to escape. Did it work? No. I mean, just look at this fight and tell me how effective this was. And after trying the same method a few more times, it became apparent to me that the biggest problem was 1. I can't reach the surface without taking significant damage, 2. Zombies and other upstairs goons are attacking me, and 3. I'm just shit at this game. I continued trying to beat him for quite some time like this, but it made me realize that my strategy was quite useless and needed to be either revamped or in general just be mastered. Out of all those options, I went with fishing in lava because I came up with a new idea which I ended up forgetting to record, but in some sense it was not the worst thing, because it didn't even get close to working. So I just ended up fishing in lava for quite some time for no specific or apparent reason, and wasted even more time trying to build the arena related to whatever I was fishing. From then on, I still had one more idea, which was to build a hoik system, which mimics the railing system I built earlier, except in a way that would have hopefully worked. It did not work at all. I tried to make it bigger, smaller, wider, taller, you name it, but it did not work at all. So I figured out that the minecart was my best method up to date. So I tried to make an arena that would go all around the dungeon and replicate what I had on the surface, except much bigger and faster. Except the biggest problem generated from that, and that was he was despawning once again like every other boss, including himself, or that he was just catching up to me and killing me. So after a few attempts, I gave up. And by a few, I mean multiple attempts. I decided that it might be worth watching a playthrough on this mode, and the most common method to reach the surface was using gravitation potions. I figured that this might work for me, and so I figured it was worth a shot. Boy oh boy was I not disappointed. I could finally reach the surface without having 67% of my health removed. Not only that, it was also much faster and safer. I forgot to mention, but around this time as well, I started making surface renovation and basically just made an extremely large spawn-proof arena for this fight. Basically like what I did earlier, except I decided that I would need even more space. Eventually though, I reached my best fight yet with this man and managed to get him to 50% HP, only to see that he spawns in casters which just screw you over with contact and range damage. Around this time as well, I also ended up checking another world's dungeon just to see how much different it was to mine. And while doing that, I ended up obtaining a key, which I used to unlock a Muramasa. This was hype as I could finally craft the Knight's Edge, which was by far the best weapon I could obtain in pre-hard mode. Now it's debatable on whether or not what I did was immoral or not, but to be honest it was literally just another world, and I ended up getting it from breaking one of the pots. Boo-hoo, I guess. So I grabbed all my items and went to an altar and made it. Regardless of all that, I finally found the strat to beat this old fool, and once again it uses minecarts. But I actually found the right dimensions that worked. Unfortunately, I don't have the clip of me escaping from the dungeon to the surface, but I have about 90% of the fight. Here's the fight, and enjoy, man. Finally, that nightmare of a fight was done. This was by far the longest fight ever, and it was really stupid. Screw Skeletron. Anyways, since he was now beat, I could use it to my advantage to go explore the dungeon and unlock other items and weapons for more psychological and physical advancement. I was expecting this part of the game to be the worst, but to be honest, it went way better than I expected. So hey, I'm not even gonna complain. The hell phase of the game, according to many people online, is the worst part of the whole seed of legendary mode. As you watch me right now, I was getting ready to attempt to beat the wall of flesh, only to embarrassingly lose to a flaming bat. However, it doesn't matter at all, so I buffed up, threw the doll into the lava, and started fighting the wall of flesh. When the fight first started, I thought it would simply be a harder master mode fight. However, the bastard started to summon in fire imps from the crevices of his asshole, so I was taking really heavy back shots. This continued for only a short amount of time before I ended up dying. I knew that by this stage, I haven't really been following the guide too well, but in my defense, it is quite loose on what I can or can't do. But I was going to follow one of the strategies or methods used to beat the wall of flesh, which is to build a layer of blocks on the layers of hell and fight the wall on there. The idea being that the imps weren't gonna harass me as much with their stupid contact damage. So after buffing up and immediately seeing an imp spawn in, I was quite disappointed, and regardless of all that, the fight ended with yet again another loss. So I tried again and lost again. I figured that I would test a strategy I found on YouTube. Link will be in the description of this video. This method was practically an assassination attempt on the wall of flesh, as we are going to time a shat ton of dynamite and blow the shit out of him, watching him die. After spending quite some time measuring stuff, wiring stuff, and timing stuff, I figured that it was time to put this in motion. All I had to do was pull this lever and wait. You can see his health quite literally being shaved in tiny bite-sized pieces, but as he started to approach me, he started to go faster and faster, meaning my bombs were not catching up to him. And suddenly, he approached me with half health, and I wasn't really prepared for this scenario, so as you can expect, the fight really didn't go well, and I ended up dying for this reason. So I decided that I was gonna stop wasting my time and just focus on actually beating the game using the sealing method, which the guide suggests. I grinded for a bunch of imp banners, put in my stations in the wall, and it was time to begin fighting this fool. I got the best potions, reforges, and weapons at this point. So the only thing left to do at this point was to beat him. No more methods, no more nothing. Starting off with the first attempt, I wasn't getting harassed by imps as much, so it wasn't really a problem. But the biggest problem now was that I couldn't really approach the eye and do enough damage, but for my first attempt, I got him 50%. This pattern of 50% health or early fails was going to continue for quite some time until I discovered the best item for this fight. Yeah, I kind of just broke my word from earlier that I don't need any more items, because I ended up getting the bundle of balloons. If I could jump really high with no consequences, then I could reach the eyes quickly without taking much damage, and here's how my first attempt went using it. Much better than all the previous attempts, so I knew I could do it. So to finish this video off, here's how my final battle with the wall of flesh went like.